Hi guys, welcome to this not gameplay video. This isn't something I usually do, like camera videos, because I'm terrible in front of a camera. But I have been talking for several months now that I would do another guitar show and tell, I suppose, of my modest collection of instruments. So yeah, this won't be like too involved or anything, just going through them probably in the order that I acquired them seems to make the most sense to me. There will also be an update about the move and stuff, because this is actually the first video that I record in the new place. But that will be at a later time, probably during a gameplay video of sorts. So yeah, some of these will be returnals from the previous guitar related video I did back in 2016, maybe 2017, I forget. I think it was 2016. So yeah, the first one is my Epiphone SG, which I want to say 2005 I got for Christmas. My first electric guitar. Mostly original. I mean, it's only an Epiphone, so it doesn't really hold value like proper vintage instruments. I never did much to this one or any of my guitars really, other than I replaced the pickup selector switch tip, like this plastic thingy. I changed that to this creamy white one because it came with an orange one, probably to look aged, but it looked very bad and it always bothered me. I also changed the bridge maybe 2 years ago because it was very corroded from palm sweat. And I replaced the tuners, these thingies, also I think about 2 years ago, because the stock ones one of them had worn out and was getting a bit grindy to turn. So I put these locking ones on that are a bit easier to use when restringing. But as my luck would have it, recently I put thicker strings on this because I wanted to tune it to siren. We live right across the street from a hospital, so I guess that comes with a few more sirens. But recently I put thicker strings on it to put it in an open tuning, which means you can play whole chords with just one finger. Because I've been kind of getting more into slide guitar, and I have enough guitars now that I can experiment with some of them, and this guitar I was using the least for whatever reason. I don't know, it doesn't always do much for me sonically, so I thought I might as well try something new with this one and try an open tuning. So this is an open D. and as my luck would have it, like I was saying, the thickest string is a 56 gauge, and it didn't fit through the new tuners, so I had to put one of the old ones back on. As you can see, it's it's a different shape because it, like I said, it didn't fit through the locking tuners. There have been sirens before, but never that many in a day, so I guess I just picked a bad day to record this. I think that's all I can really say about this one. There used to be a big sticker here. So awkward showing things to a camera. A big sticker here. I don't know if that was still on there in the video from years ago. And this kind of tacky yin and yang tribal strap, which I got for my birthday not long after I got the guitar. All in all, in pretty good shape, like not much damage at all. Some of the plastic has yellowed a bit, like this. What used to be white on the edges turned a bit yellow. That's to be expected. Not much else to say, so I guess we'll move on to number 2. Okay, the second instrument is, well, in chronological order, is my 6-string bass. By, make sure I don't bump into anything. Polish/German brand called Maruszczyk. This was made to me by order, on order, I don't know, by my specs. It's should have taken the strap off. There you go. A nice matte finish. Older body with a nicely figured ash top. The pickups are Bass Culture, which I think is a Dutch brand. There wasn't that much choice for pickups, and I wanted pickups without open magnets or open pole pieces. So I wasn't being too picky about it. It's the pickups he recommended, so that's what I went with. Most of their basses are active, which means they have some kind of preamp built in. But I specifically wanted a passive instrument, so it's just an overall volume. This blends between the pickups, so all the way clockwise is this one front split pickup. All the way back is the humbucker. And there's a notch in the middle where it's both equally. And then this is a tone knob with a push-pull to split this humbucker. Fretwood is rosewood. Maple neck with hip-shot tuners. I think they're ultralight tuners, but I could be wrong. I got this back in 2013, I believe. It's a bit dusty because I keep all my guitars on a rack, and the ones that don't get played much tend to get a bit dusty. Sorry for all the noise, but this is a bit awkward to show. And there's this X inlay. Back in those days I was straight edge, like no drinking, no drugs. and I was transitioning to a vegan diet, which I've long since abandoned. So yeah, at the time I thought it was something cool and unique, but if there's anything I sort of regret about this bass is that I went with this inlay, even though it's kind of a unique thing. It's a bit stupid. But yeah, it's got these monorail bridge pieces, one for each string. That is to set the string spacing to what I wanted, which I believe was 18 millimeters. On 6-string basses, it's, I think, a bit more common to have 16 mil string spacing, just for ergonomical reasons, like ease of playing. But I wanted it to, I mean, I didn't want the strings to be too close together, because it makes it more difficult to play for me. So I really like the sound it makes on the matte finish. But yeah, that's it for this one. Let's move on. It's getting a bit hot in here. I'm in the attic, aka our bedroom, aka my music/desk space. This is, I think, yeah, this is the last returning instrument from the other video. I got this one in, I think, 2014, secondhand. This is a Squier vintage modified precision bass. Very classic, very, you know, standard P-bass. My very first bass was basically exactly the same as this one, but in white with the black pickguard and a rosewood fretboard, like the darker wood. But I really wanted, I mean, I sold that white bass somewhat regrettably, and I just wanted another one again. So I started looking for one used, because they didn't, I don't think at the time they made them like my first one anymore, so I had to look used. It's very dusty. And this one was for sale in my city. I think it's a maple body and a maple neck with maple fretboards, all maple. The pole pieces are a bit rusted on the magnets, a bit corroded. But this one's seen some use, like you can tell from the fretboard. It's a bit, well, some would say dirty, but I would say worn in. I had to put this piece of tape on the strap end because it would rub against the bass here when I was standing with it, and it squeaked and it drove me insane, so I had to put something over it to stop it from squeaking. I changed a few things. The first one, well, actually, the guy I bought it from changed the pots, the pot meters, to CTS pots, which are kind of like industry standard, I guess. Generally, import instruments come with cheaper electronics for cost reasons. And one of the first things that many people do is change the pots to better quality ones, which I didn't have to do because they were already in here. But the first mod I did myself was I put this detuner. I think they're called extender keys officially. And with this lever you can instantly drop the tuning of this string to whatever pitch you set it to with this this little screw, which I used quite a bit back in the day for playing in drop D. It's a bit easier. I don't really do much drop tuning these days. It's pretty much all standard. But there was one song where I had to go to a low C sharp. So I set this to be in a C sharp at the dropped setting. So I could just quickly drop it with my right hand to get that low note. Yeah, it's very well used and very well loved. But yeah, I think that's all there is to say. Oh no, there isn't. The other thing I did more recently, I think last year, I wanted to get a bit more into soldering. Just because it's a very valuable skill to know how to do if you work with guitars a lot. Because it's pretty simple. It's probably difficult to do it well, but if something ever breaks electronically, or if a pot wears out, or you want to change pickups or whatever, it's really not that difficult if you know how to solder. So I wanted to try doing that, and as it would happen, this tone pot was broken pretty much all the time I had this bass, because I wanted to put one of those chicken head knobs on it with the, yeah, I can't really show you because I don't know where it is, but like a, yeah, just a kind of knob that I thought looked cool. I wanted to put that on this, but it didn't really fit, and I forced it on too hard and it kind of broke the pot on the inside. So it was always a bit rattly, even though it still worked fine. But I changed that out, the whole pot. I forget if I also did this one. I don't think so, because it always worked fine, so there's not really any need to change that. And I just put the normal, I guess they're precision style or tele style knobs on it. And I changed the screws out to black ones. Can barely see them. But the screws that hold on the pickguard, because they used to be chrome, as you would expect. And I changed them to black ones, but they, like the black wore off, so I had to buy another set of black screws. But yeah, that's all about this one. Maybe you can see that there's a slight color difference, because this is nickel and this is chrome, so it just, as it aged, it got a bit dull in a nice way, which the stock tuners will never do because they're chrome. So yeah, that's it for this one. Let's move on. Okay, and the third and last bass is also a Squier jazz bass, but it looks kind of quirky. It's a official name, if I can remember, Squier Paranormal 54 jazz bass, which never really existed as far as I'm aware, because I think jazz basses were only made in the 60s, but this is kind of a mix of, I guess, the first P-bass, which had this kind of scratch plate, but it just had the one pickup, not one like this, but I'll put a picture over it just for clarity's sake, because I'm terrible at explaining stuff. And it has, or it came with, two of these stack pots, where the top one is volume and the bottom knob is the tone, and it had one of those for each pickup. But like I said, I was experimenting a bit with soldering and just trying to practice. So I put this is a blend control for the pickups, like on my red bass. So all the way clockwise is this one, all the way back, or all the way counterclockwise is this pickup, and there's a notch in the middle for both. And this is just the overall volume and overall tone. Which I'm kind of proud of, that I was able to do this. I forget where I found the wiring diagram on how to do this, because it's, I think, pretty uncommon to have this kind of setup with the stacked knobs. And the cavity underneath this plate is pretty small, so it was a bit of a chore to get all the wires to stay in. And yeah, it's just a simple white bass where you can just barely see some of the wood grain through. I got this one in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the extender key on here like on the previous bass, just the normal tuners. Not long after I got it, I did put a new bridge on here, which again I should have prepared and gotten out to show it, but it was a Fender high mass bridge, but somewhat ironically I didn't really like the way it sounded compared to the stock one, so I changed it back to the normal cheap, I guess, bridge. It's got a glossy fingerboard as opposed to the other one, which is all matte. And also the back of the neck is glossy, which I always thought I disliked glossy necks, but I guess I don't really care. In some ways I prefer the neck of a... I prefer the feel of a gloss neck. Because it's... I don't know. It's not better or worse, just different. And it never gets so hot that it gets really sticky, because that's the main issue I think people have with glossy necks, is that on stage or in... if it's hot in general, it tends to get sticky and makes it more difficult to slide up and down the neck. But I never really had problems with that so far. Oh, yeah. Well, can't really tell from the video, but the nut width, which is the width here, is narrower on jazz basses, so on this one compared to the previous one. And I always thought that was a deal breaker for jazz basses for me, and why I would never like jazz basses. But this is by far my most played bass currently. So yeah, just to show that it's... sometimes you think something matters about an instrument, but then it's really not a big deal at all. And lastly, I didn't really show on the previous one, but this, if I can get it close enough, maybe you can just about see that the strings are smooth. These are flat wounds, which the most simple way to explain it is to say that a string has a core, which is just a wire, and around it is another wire wrapped. And on normal, I mean, not to say normal or not normal, but most commonly used strings, the wrap wire is also round, which makes it a round wound, and you get these ridges in between the wraps. But on flat wounds, the wrapped wire is like a ribbon, so it makes the string completely smooth, and it just gives a different sound, like a more vintage sound, a bit more dull and bassy, which I lately generally prefer. So I will probably put flat wounds on the orange, yellow, whatever, on the previous bass as well. And maybe also on the 6-string. Because I really prefer the feel of flat wounds, and on the yellow bass I had flat wounds for a very long time, but I changed them back to round wounds because they weren't, like, they're very cool for more old school sound, but maybe not as good for rock or heavier styles, which back in those days I was still playing, but lately I think I've kind of found my sound a bit more, which is a very stupid thing to hear myself say, but I think I found a sound that speaks to me the most and that gets me to play the most. So yeah, that's all I can say really. I like flats, and I think I will put them on all my basses. But that is it for this one. Let's move on to another guitar, shall we? from here on, it's all gonna be guitars. And this one is, I don't want to say my prettiest, but definitely my most bling guitar. Just my Metal Flake Danelectro baritone. Which I bought either in late 2021 or sometime last year. Because I had been wanting a baritone for many years, but I never actually bought one for whatever reason. Just either there was always something else I would rather buy, or I wasn't sure enough if it would be something I would enjoy. But I'm very happy about this one, and it's definitely one of my two most played guitars at the moment. Quickly about baritones, like normal concert pitch for guitars is E to E, E standard, meaning E, A, D, G, B, E. Whereas a baritone is generally tuned a fourth lower. So B, E, A, D, F sharp, and B, which gives it just a lower tone and a deeper sound, which is cool for various things. Like I used to like playing a lot of more ambient stuff, which in my opinion always sounds a bit nicer if it's tuned a bit lower. But it's really just a different register, like a different sound makes you play a bit differently. Even your normal chord progressions or riffs that you may know just sound different on a baritone, and that in itself can be a very inspiring thing. This was sort of an impulse buy. I'm not entirely sure what originally drew me to Danelectro baritone specifically, but I'm very happy with this one. A few things I didn't know until I bought one. It's mostly hollow. I don't know if it's completely hollow, but it's very light because it's mostly hollow, which makes it very comfortable to play. And it has an aluminum nut, this thingamajig. Whereas on most, if not all guitars, it's either some kind of composite plastic or bone, or some kind of synthetic bone, which I guess is also just plastic. But yeah, it gives it a very bright sound, which I think works nicely with the lower tuning. It just means that it's not so muddy. And yeah, the other thing is that this pickup switch In the top position it's this lipstick single coil. In the downward position it's this one. And in the middle it's both, but it's actually humbucking. I don't want to make this too technical because I don't know that much about it, but in most cases, if you combine two single coils on a switch, the middle position is parallel, whereas this one, I assume, is series. So they're combined in series and not parallel, which just gives it a different sound. More like a humbucker. And that's probably the setting I use the most, if not always. Yeah, I kind of like that it's a bit of a crappy metal flake, because I don't know if you can see, but it doesn't really have any depth to it, and you can see that it's just like glittery sprinkles on top of a black finish. And especially on the headstock. Like maybe it doesn't show that well on camera, but it's not like some of the sparkly finishes that have a lot of depth to them and stuff. It's just looks kind of cheaply done, but I kind of like that about it. And this, if you can tell, yeah, maybe not, but this white strip on the side is like some kind of fake leather material, which wouldn't look good on any other guitar, I think, but it really works on this one. And it's just fun to play. It's very cool for surfy type stuff, or for spaghetti western, like more, maybe ambient is the wrong word, but like more movie score type playing. Yeah, I think that's all there is to say about this one. It's a really cool one, and one I will hopefully never have to sell, unless things get really dire financially. I don't think I'll ever sell this one. Like I was saying about the flat rounds previously, I would like to put flat rounds on this one as well, but it turns out to be very difficult to find flat rounds for this scale length, which is 30 inches. So yeah, unless I can find some strings, some flat rounds that would fit, I probably will have to keep round wounds on this one, which is fine, but you know. So yeah, that's it for this one. Only 2 more to go. Okay. Second to last, and well, also kind of bling, but in a different way, is my shell pink Squier Cyclone. Also from the Paranormal series, like the white bass. What is there to say about this one? It's very pink, obviously. I also bought this one used sometime last year. I forget when exactly. But I think the main motivator was because I wanted a guitar with a whammy bar, which I never owned until this one, and always also steered clear from for the most part, because I'm not really sure why, but I never really cared much for wiggle sticks because of alleged issues with tuning stability, which is nonsense because this one stays in tune better than my SG. This is a short scale guitar, which means the distance from where the string crosses the saddle to the nut is only 24 inches, whereas on the first guitar it's 24 and 3/4 inches. Again, I don't want to generalize too much, but it's the common scale lengths are either 25.5 inch or 24 and 3/4 inch. So this is just a bit shorter, which means that the frets are a little bit closer together, which makes it a tiny bit easier to play. And it also makes the strings feel a bit more slack if you use the same strings across different scale lengths. On a longer scale length they will feel a bit tighter. So these ones feel a bit shorter. Actually, I made a big mistake because this is not 24 inch at all, it's 24 and 3/4. So the same as the red guitar. Which is kind of a reason why I liked it so much. Because it's a Fender style guitar. With that scale length is kind of uncommon, if not rare, because I don't think I've ever heard of other Fender guitars with 24 and 3/4 scale. Maybe like a Toronado. I don't know. But it's kind of a, like, I guess all the models in the Paranormal series of Squier guitars, they're like a weird mix of different elements, because you've got the Mustang body shape with 3 single coils like a Strat tremolo system set up to float, if you can see that at all. So it's raised off the body a bit. I don't know if Mustangs usually have these kinds of pickup switches, or if that's more of a Jaguar thing, but it's another quirk. The weird Gibson scale length. Really like this one, but I don't play it that much lately. I was very impressed with the tuning stability, because I was kind of worried it would be hard to set up and difficult to keep in tune. But it's surprisingly stable, and I only set it up once, not long after I got it, and after I decided what size strings to use, which is 10 to 52. Same as on the red guitar. But yeah, it's been very stable. It's very fun for like punky kind of playing, and obviously for any kind of surf stuff or things you would typically use a Fender for. It's just very versatile, really. And I guess I'm generally more of a Fender guy than a Gibson guy, so it's a very cool guitar to have. Again, this has the glossy back of the neck squeak, which I thought I wouldn't like so much, and always when I get a guitar with a glossy neck, I always think about sanding the gloss off of a neck to make it a bit more smooth feeling, but I never do because it just really doesn't bother me. So yeah, there's not much else to say. This is just in standard E tuning with my favorite kind of tuners, which are the vintage style Fender tuners. Although they're probably not Fender tuners, but with the slot across the shaft, which makes it very easy to restring, and you never have any string ends sticking out and poking you in the fingers. Yeah, one thing, like I did have issues with the tremolo arm staying in the same place, but I bought one of those, or a pack of those tiny springs that are made specifically to go underneath the arm where you screw it in to keep it in place. And as long as you don't, like, you could tighten this all the way and it would probably break the spring, but as long as you don't overdo it, it just stays in the same place and it's not loose at all or wiggling in the hole. So yeah, all stock, like nothing changed electronically because there's no need to. If something ever breaks, I will probably upgrade it to a better quality part. But for now, it's fine. So yeah, let's move on to the next and last guitar. Okay, and lastly is another Squier. I guess I have 4 Squier instruments, 2 basses and 2 guitars. But this is my most recent acquisition from, wait, we're May now, so I guess it was from like March or something. This is my Squier Jaguar bump. Can't really see the black on the, yeah, just about. But it's pretty recognizable as a Jaguar, even without the words. So this is a Squier Classic Vibe FSR Fender Special Run Jaguar. Special purely because of the color, which is very cool charcoal frost metallic. It's not really a metallic, but in the right light it's kind of metallic-y. It's not really a gray, it's not really a blue, it's not really a black, but it's kind of in between all three. This is currently my favorite guitar, despite quite a few issues when I got it. Where to even begin? The frets were very scratchy, like very rough feeling when you bend the string. It's still not perfect now, but it's much better than it was. It just felt horrible. I went over it with steel wool a few times, like normal, what's the grit, like triple O or quadruple O steel wool, which is enough to polish frets on all my other guitars, but on this one it really needed more. So I bought a few polishing rubbers, which are basically just erasers with some grit to them. I think I used a 400 grit and then 1,000, I guess. And that fixed most of it. It's still not ideal, but it's, at least I don't really notice it anymore while playing. And then the biggest thing, and something that I've never done before and that I hope to not have to do very often again, is I had to shim the neck, which, put simply, because I don't want to assume that everyone who watches this knows a lot about guitars, but a common problem with this kind of guitar, like Jaguars and Jazzmasters, is that to get the, wait, how can I do this? To get the strings low enough to the frets to make it play well, or to not have the strings all the way up here, which I can't see because my hand's in the way, but to not have like super high string action. Probably better to show it like this without bumping the mic. If you can see the way the strings break over the bridge, you want the bridge high enough off the body to create a sharp enough angle where the strings cross the bridge. But raising the bridge also raises the strings like vertically off of the neck, which makes it harder to play. So to counteract that, you have to what's known as shim the neck, which is where you take the whole neck off of the guitar and you put like slivers of, well, you can use whatever really. Some people use guitar picks or sandpaper. You can buy proper shims, like small slivers of wood in the shape of the neck pocket. But those are, in my opinion, somewhat overpriced, so I didn't get those. I just used 1,000 grit sandpaper, like normal A4 sheets, cut to size and in a tapered fashion, so one piece that's the size of the whole neck pocket, and then the next piece that's a bit shorter, and then a bit shorter still, and like this. I think I started with 6 pieces, so at the upper side it was 1 piece thick, and at the lower side it was 6 pieces thick. But that was a bit too much as it turned out. So I had to take some out, and now it's 3 pieces. So one that's the full length, one that's half the length of the neck pocket, or 2/3, and a third one that's like a third of the neck pocket long. And that seemed to be enough. Like, it plays well to me now. I had to get used to it because it felt different anyway. But now I really enjoy it. Yeah, as opposed to what I initially said about the pink guitar, this is a normal short scale guitar, so from here to here is 24 inches, which I thought would make a bigger difference in how long the neck feels, but it feels like a normal guitar to me, so it didn't take much adjustment or much getting used to. It has a typical Jaguar / Jazzmaster tremolo. It just pops in here, and I think it's best if I don't explain the full workings of this, because it will take too long and I'll probably explain it badly. But pushing this down pushes the whole thing further into the body, where it's connected to a plate that's attached to a spring, and that allows this piece where the strings are anchored to move forward and back. Which creates the tremolo sound. Don't know if you can hear that at all, but yeah. And also, which is typical of Jazzmasters and Jaguars, at least more vintage ones, because I think modern ones don't always have this. But the bridge is, wait, I'll explain first and then show you. But the bridge isn't screwed into the body, it just sits into thimbles. And there's like 2 mil or something of free space all around the post, which allows the bridge to rock backwards and forwards as you use the tremolo. Supposedly for tuning stability. I don't know, some people wrap tape around the posts to prevent them from rocking back and forth, because it's supposedly like increases sustain and makes everything a bit more solid and stable. Whereas other people, traditionalists I suppose, will say that it's bad to block the movement and that it's supposed to move freely, even if it creates some extraneous noise. But one mistake I made is that in the beginning I had the bridge set all the way back into the holes, like tilted all the way backwards, because I wrongly assumed that it was only supposed to move forwards and then back to the fully back position. But apparently it's supposed to be set in the middle so it can move backwards and forwards, which makes sense. I thought about replacing the trem system to a VRI, or American Vintage Reissue trem system, which has the lock on it, which this one doesn't. It's just a screw. But for now I don't think I will mess with this more until something wears out or breaks or whatever, because it plays fine the way it does and I'm really enjoying it, so I don't want to risk changing something out that doesn't need changing and maybe messing something up. There was a small issue with the way the whammy bar fit into the, whatever you call this, into the hole, which I tried to remedy with electrical tape so it fit a bit more snugly. But that didn't really help. But then recently, I think it was after the move, like I took the bar out when I moved it, because it's just better to take them out. And when I put it back in after we moved, I was able to push it in a bit further, and it just kind of popped in, which it didn't do before. And now it's very snug, so I guess I was just an idiot and I didn't put it in the way you were supposed to. Make of that what you will. There's not that much else. It's a pretty typical Jaguar, electronics wise, like a volume, tone, or I should start with this switch. This switch in the downward position allows you to use these controls for tone and volume. This switch switches this pickup on and off. This switch switches this pickup on and off. And the third switch is a strangle switch, which, if I remember correctly, is more of a high pass filter, so it cuts off some of the low end. Maybe also some highs, I'm not sure. Definitely some low end. And so that's one side, and then when you flip this to the up position, then you're only using this pickup, so these switches don't do anything anymore. And then you have a volume and a tone control on these, what do you call them, thumb wheels. So that's just a volume and a tone for this pickup, but in this setting I have to cut this label off because it's annoying me. In the top position, the rhythm circuit, the neck pickup sounds a bit darker, even with the tone rolled all the way up. It's just, I don't know, something with a different capacitor, or I'm not really sure. Yeah, I mainly use the lead circuit, sort of the down position. and then mess with the pickups. But recently I put flat wounds on this guitar, which is a first. Like, I never put flat wounds on a guitar before, just on basses. But I wanted to try it mainly because flat wounds generally have higher tension compared to round wounds of the same gauge, which puts more downward force on the bridge and should, in theory, make it a bit more tuning stable. And allegedly, I don't know if this is true, but in the 60s when these came out, all guitars were strung with, or not all, but guitars, electric guitars were typically strung with flat wounds because there weren't any round wounds being made yet. So I just wanted to try it for a, you know, a more vintage kind of sound. More period correct, I suppose. And I really like it. It's very, like, it sounds a bit duller in a nice way. But I use, maybe I should do a video on my pedal board at some point. But I use a lot of spring reverb, which makes the sound very bright anyway, so actually dull sounding strings work very well with that sound because the reverb makes them bright anyway, so round wounds were always a bit too piercing. And I like the feel of it. Like I said, on bass especially, I lately prefer the feel of flats. But also on guitar, I think it feels nice to play. I like that they're a bit higher tension without being that much thicker. And yeah, it's just a really inspiring instrument to play. It helps that the flats stay clean a bit longer. And you don't have to change them as much because there is less space for dirt to like work its way into because there aren't any grooves. I'd say that's about it, really. Again, this has the vintage style Fender tuners, which I do like, and they work well. Like, they're probably not the best quality, but I have there's no real point in exchanging them at this point. It's just a cool guitar. The body is also a bit bigger than, I guess, all of my other guitars, which I quite like, because it makes it a bit more comfortable to sit with. As I'm a pretty tall guy, it's 6'4", 6'5"-ish. So it doesn't take much for a guitar to look like I'm playing a ukulele, which incidentally I also have, but I don't think I'll show in this video because I'm not really sure where it is. But I have a ukulele, and behind me there's my old classical guitar, which I'm pretty sure I showed in the first video. But I won't take out now because I'm not really sure in what condition it is, because I don't really play it anymore. Yeah, I can't think of anything else to say, so I guess that's as good a time as any to round this off. Up, off. Maybe in the future, like I said, I can do a video where I go over all my pedals. If that's something you would like to see, please let me know. I think I've been awkward in front of a camera for long enough now. So I think I'm gonna call it a video here. If I can stop playing. Proof that it's a good guitar. If I'm always noodling on it, even during work. Coming up will be more gameplay videos of Session, well, all the regulars really. Session, Hogwarts Legacy, SnowRunner, Stardew Valley, Isaac. So all the usual games. Last quick note is that I do have the new Zelda game, and I would like to start playing it soon, but if you've seen the community post I did, I have no practical means to record Switch games at this point. So yeah, it kind of depends how long I can wait to play Zelda. 'Cause, maybe by the time I start playing it, I will have some kind of capture card or whatever else I would need to record Switch games. And if not, I'm sure there will be videos at some point. It's been an expensive month with the move and stuff. So I can't really justify spending 150, 200 euros on a capture card just to record one game, because I can record on PS5 just directly. So I think that's gonna have to wait. There will be Zelda videos at some point, but I can't really say when, so I will just play it off camera. And whenever I can record it in the future, I definitely will. So yeah, once again, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching and for listening. I hope you like this look at my instruments, and I will talk to you next time. Bye bye.